It's a lot of fun. It is a lot of fun to just go through this game and break it. Because we have the bat before going down here the first time, I'm going to go in here before we head down to the bottom. Claymore, that's a two-handed weapon, and I don't want two-handed weapons. I'm doing fine with the Holy Rod for the minute. We're about to come up on a boss, which I think is weak to Holy, and if it's not, it should be. The meal tickets are kind of funny. There's a bunch of speedruns you can find. I know they did it at one of the GDQs one year. The Moonstone boosts your stats after sunset. The game has an in-game clock that starts at midnight when you start playing, because the PS1 does not have a clock on it. And then once the clock reaches 6 AM, it's counted as day, and when it reaches 6 PM, it's counted as night. But the game starts at midnight. The meal ticket was a funny thing. Using the duplicator and equipping the meal ticket, it will throw out a random food item. And one of the GDQs you can find where they were using the duplicator, using the shield dash technique, but instead of a shield, the meal ticket with the duplicator equipped. So they were just backdashing and throwing food out, and it was really funny.
Mother!
That voice! Alucard, it's you!
I'm coming, Mother! I'll save you!
No, Alucard! Don't come here!
But Mother!
It's all right. If my death can save others, I'd gladly surrender my life.
Mother, no! Please, no!
Yes, Alucard. Watch me die, and remember always my last words to you.
Yes, Mother.
You must despise humans. They are to be your prey.
What?
Better for them to die than to let them compound their sins. Begin by slaying that one over there.
That one?
No!
Which one?
It wasn't like this.
What's wrong? Alucard.
This scene is probably better known by a lot of non-Castlevania fans.
What do you mean?
The scene of
Kill
Lisa
them
being
and bring them
executed
happiness.
for being a witch. Because
you're
it
not my
was
mother.
in the
What
first
kind of
episode
demon
of the
are you?
Castlevania Netflix series. There's less fire here, though.
You broke free of my spell. I like that.
The succubus sprite here is based on the full artwork, which does not contain any underwear, and her breasts are exposed. This isn't an M-rated game, but the succubus is actually a really easy boss. She does so little damage. 13, not much. If you come back to her later, like if you end up going through the Underground Caverns first before you end up with the bat, then chances are she'll do even less damage. It's not uncommon to come into this boss fight with her doing 1 point of damage per attack. And beyond that, her attacks are so easy to avoid. And now her voice acting gets much worse.
Darkling, I smell your blood. You're a vampire? Could it be?
Was that like the first
That
reading?
strength, that beauty. You're the son of Lord Dracula.
Death in the dream world will set your soul wandering for eternity, demon.
Wait, I beg of you.
So that was the succubus, and the result of that boss is we get the gold ring, which we will make use of later. Actually, let me save it just in case, because this is a Let's Play, and I would rather not go out and die stupidly, and have to redo that, because that would be very embarrassing. Yeah, that scene is the only time we ever actually see Lisa in the games. Alucard's mother, Dracula's wife. And as such is the direct inspiration of the scene from the Netflix series where Lisa is burned at the stake for being a witch. With less swearing, obviously. There was a lot of swearing in the Netflix series. Oh, okay. We head south now. We'll take on an optional boss. I say optional. This is the Succubus is technically an optional boss. Although, if you want to get the second secret half of the game, you have to fight the Succubus. Unless you're going for map completion, you never have to come down here and fight this boss, which is kind of interesting. Alucard is allergic to water. Traditional vampire weakness. Depending on what law you're looking at, either running water or just water itself for the purifying effects it has. Yeah, that Scylla worm is part of this. I want to get behind it. It's not letting me jump there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kill the worms. It's not difficult. Watch out for the bubbles. Although, neat effect, just before they charge into you, the bubbles turn into skulls, which I like. Let's get a look at it now while we're not being attacked by the Scylla worms. I like that, that's neat. But yeah, now we can just get behind her and do this. So that was fun. We do actually get an item for that, but it's not an essential item. The Crystal Cloak, which I think is an upgrade on the Blood Cloak. Yes. Has a neat effect. Semi-transparency. We get to a point where we can really see it. It blinks in and out of being transparent. In the Sega Saturn version, because the Saturn just can't really do transparency, it's replaced with the White Cloak, which I think has the same stats, it's just white. Less interesting. That's weaker than what we have. Okay, now I just think to myself where to go next. Keep going through the Underground Caverns. Circle back around to the entrance. Again, minimise backtracking. I will want to go to the clock room at some point, but I will need to be there later anyway. Yeah. Onward. Okay, so we head through the Underground Caverns. This is a neat little feature, I like this bit. It's one of the, I think, the only time anything like this happens. Because, like, you can't get across there. So I think that's pretty cool. Like I said, I think it's the only time it happens. Anything like that happens in the game. Toads can be a little annoying. The frogs are worse though, because they're smaller. You'll see those in a moment. There we are. So there are, oh, no bother. The Netflix series I did find to be really enjoyable as a TV show. There was a lot to like about it. The character's world and Dracula I thought was portrayed really well. Very sympathetically, interestingly enough. Which I don't think has ever really happened in the games. I don't think he's ever been very sympathetic in the games. Lord Shadow you could possibly make an argument for, but you know, that's a different continuity, and you know, you could argue whether or not the quality of the writing was really up to much. But actually, no. If I go the other way, this will limit backtracking again. Always have to limit your backtracking, kids. So the secret boots are another accessory. Doesn't actually do anything to the stats, but if you look at the model, Alucard is actually slightly bigger. That's the only effect it has. He's slightly bigger. Yeah, I thought it was Graham McTavish who did the voice for Dracula in the Netflix series. I thought he did an excellent job. The ending of Season 2 does leave it open for a potential Season 3, although I'm not entirely sure. Like, Season 1 ends with, like, yeah, here we go, going to Dracula's castle to deal with Dracula. And Season 2 ends with, now what? And the way it all ends is very different to the traditional Castlevania style. Oh, here's the ferryman.
I'll take you to a place which might be interesting for you.
Castlevania traditionally deal with Dracula, take him down, the castle disappears, and then we're good for another 100 years. And the series, it's kind of heavily implied that it's not happened before. Which I don't recall if it had happened by the time Castlevania 3 rolled around. As far as I remember, the timeline is Lament of Innocence, then Castlevania 3. There's a couple hundred years between them. So I'm not entirely sure if there's a Belmont between there to deal with Dracula. But the series implies this Dracula hasn't been defeated and risen again before. The Belmont name is known to the vampires as legendary monster hunters, but not as, you know, the clan that fights the night, as Leon puts it at the end of Lament of Innocence. Lament of Innocence is another game, like, keep going long enough, I'll do Lament of Innocence sooner or later. So, I do think the 3D Castlevania games get a bad rap. Made a mistake, they're not masterpieces. But they have their positives. They have the negatives, but they have some good positives. And I do quite like Lament of Innocence. So now we're actually back at the castle entrance. And there's an item I want to pick up here that'll make moving around faster. I'll just go this way, and then like this. And if we've done that right, this room down here opens. I have no idea how you're supposed to figure that out. I didn't mention it earlier, but when I was cursed by one of the ectoplasms in the library, the Fairy Familiar did use an uncurse on me. The Fairy Familiar will use healing items like that, like the uncurse, the potion, the antidotes. Also use a hammer if you get petrified. Will smash you out of petrification, which is kind of funny actually, because she just pulls out a hammer and smacks Alucard in the head with it. It's pretty funny. The life apple we just picked up is actually a resurrection item. If we die with a life apple in our inventory and the Fairy Familiar equipped, then the Fairy Familiar will revive us with the life apple. Hopefully we'll never see that happen. But I'm not entirely sure which familiar I'm going to stick with for this playthrough. So I have done in the past usually going with the sword familiar, but I don't usually do that. I have in the past gone with the sword familiar, but I don't want to do that again, since that's what I usually do. My playthrough of Requiem, I did use the Fairy Familiar pretty much all the way through. So maybe the Bat Familiar for this one. Alright, so what we just got, the Power of Wolf, I think it was. Power of Wolf, yeah. Run swiftly as Wolf. This is great for getting around, because we run way faster, and we'll charge through enemies. Every enemy we hit does take up magic, but it's just so much faster than anything else. So what we're going to do is going to head back, make use of the Merman statue, and also that switch we pressed above the waterfall. What was I saying though? Castlevania, Lament of Innocence. The 3D games have positives and negatives. Lament of Innocence is kind of repetitive. Its visuals. It's like one of the key things about the 2D Vanias, especially the Metroidvanias, is just how varied the environments get to be, and they look really nice. Lament of Innocence is a lot of hallways, and it's a lot of combat. It's a lot of being locked into rooms to do combat, which the combat engine's fine. It's not Devil May Cry, it's not God of War, but it's fine. But when it's happening so often and it's not amazing, it's a little irritating. Let me see if I can get this actually. There we go. Didn't take too much damage doing that. I picked up the dual sword. Let me see if that's got a better power. It does. Dual sword has a chance of turning enemies that you kill with it into jewels, the sellable rings. Like that, the Zircon. Weirdly enough, in Requiem, it is actually a trophy. And because we pushed that switch above the waterfall, this skeleton appears here with a barrel. And the hint to what you're supposed to do. Oh, this feels a lot slower actually. I'm gonna switch back. Scimitar. Yeah, I'll switch back to the Holy Rod. A lot faster. The speed is not worth the power difference. Yeah, the skeleton appearing is, when you push the switch, is a clue of what to get this one to do. I played through this game back in the day before I had internet. So it was really interesting, not something you really get to see much of these days. But it was really interesting to go through a game like this and discover its many secrets myself, which I was really proud of back in the day. Like, figuring that out was really cool. I mean, I'll admit, myself, like, as cool as it was back in the day, there's a lot of times these days when I will just get frustrated with something and Google a solution. Not judging anybody who does it, because I do it myself. I get tired of things. But back in the day, it was cool when you didn't have the option to actually figure it out yourself. Curse of Darkness is a really interesting Castlevania game. If anybody's... I assume a lot of people watched the Castlevania Netflix series. Curse of Darkness is the origin of Hector and Isaac, the two Devil Forge masters. Although, if you've never played Curse of Darkness, Isaac has a very different appearance. There's a lot of leather involved. So Cerberus is actually another boss that's really easy to get into a pattern, especially if you have the holy water. Because you just jump onto one of these platforms and Cerberus will sit down and do that. And it's really simple to bait him like that. I messed it up a little, but even then, it was really simple. Curse of Darkness takes place after Castlevania 3 Dracula's Curse. It is something of a sequel. Trevor appears. A little similar to Dawn of Sorrow in that way, having a character who's more versatile than a Belmont. While your main character isn't a Belmont. Because it does happen in this, but Richter doesn't really contribute much to the plot. Whereas in Dawn of Sorrow, Julius really does contribute to the plot. He's an important character. Like, yeah, Richter's our main villain for the moment, but once we defeat him, like, that's it. He's just kind of gone. He appears in the Colosseum, and we just picked up the demon familiar, actually, which I think I'll show off. Oh, he's not going to speak. Let's see if we can do that again. I want him to speak. No. Shame. Yeah, once, after that, Richter's just kind of gone from the plot. He shows up in the Colosseum, then he will not appear again until we fight him. And after that, he's gone from the plot. Trevor does have more of a purpose in Curse of Darkness. You do fight him, because it's always cool to fight a Belmont from the other side, rather than you being the Belmont fighting the monster. Okay, so with this... Aurochs's quarters. Which means the clock tower. Alright. So I'm just trying to recall where I want to go with my current abilities. Bat Familiar, Aurochs quarter. Bat Familiar means Aurochs's quarters. Which will be through the clock room. We were actually technically in Aurochs's quarters earlier when we went above the clock room, but we went straight through into the Colosseum. But yeah, I find some of the Belmont fights... Well, I say that's just one Belmont fight. The fight against Julius in Aria of Sorrow is excellent. It's one of my favourite boss fights in the series. So with the power of Wolf, like, this corridor just isn't really even worth worrying about anymore. Just straight through. And then jump. I'm actually quite happy with how well that went. So I was expecting to crash into something a lot sooner. So, you know, that was okay. Actually, I'm going to use this here. There's a little trick we can do in the clock room. Yeah, the fight with Julius in Aria is one of my favourite fights in the series. There's a lot of weight and significance to it in terms of the plot. And it's also just really awesome. Julius is a really cool fighter. And then he does that grand cross attack, which destroys the tower in the background. It looks so good on GBA. Donosauro could be a contender for the, we just use the stopwatch here. And the clock, the statue on the right side opens. Donosauro could be a contender for the best Castlevania game. Metroidvania game. If it wasn't for the touchscreen mechanics. Every time you beat a boss, you have to draw a seal on the touchscreen. And if you don't draw it right or you don't draw it fast enough, the boss revives with a bunch of health. And it's honestly awful. And the most common kind of ROM hack you find for that game is just immediately finishing the seal for you. So the equipment we just got, the Alucard equipment, the sword, the shield, they're all very weak. They're fakes of the Alucard equipment we had at the start. But if you equip all 3 pieces of them, we get a plus 32 luck. Which is great for when you're doing some grinding. Really is worth it if you're trying to pick up the Crusagram or the Ring of Vada. I'm not going to grind for either of those. If one of them drops, I'll show them off. But I'm not going to grind for them. The gravit boots here are really helpful because we flew up the tunnel above the clock room as the bat, and it's really kind of slow and tedious. The gravit boots is down up X, and you shoot up at the cost of low magic, and it makes going through the long vertical tunnels so much easier. It's quicker, it's more convenient, and it's a simple enough button combination to pull off. Ooh, boomerang.